Before dawn's first light broke over the horizon, newsrooms and war rooms from Washington to Tehran were rocked by a simple, electrifying headline. U.S. retaliatory strike wipes out Iranian hidden base. Reuters broke the alert first, seconds later echoed in urgent scrolls on AP, and security analysts lit up Live UMAP and Defense News with flashes of real-time confirmations. Satellite images posted by OSINT trackers revealed plumes of smoke and a blast radius that left no doubt this operation was coordinated, precise, and designed for maximum impact. For years, intelligence circles whispered about hardened structures buried in the remote hills of Iran, but few outside military circles understood their true potential. Until now. What unfolded overnight wasn't just a demonstration of firepower, but a public crossing of long-standing red lines. Analysts on BBC and Jane's warned this was not a limited reprisal, but a deliberate escalation into a new realm of risk for the region. In moments, global leaders began to react with alarm. Oil markets lurched, and social media erupted in shocked commentary. As the dust settled, one fact was clear. The U.S. had shattered precedent, leaving adversaries, allies, and a watching world to wonder what lines might fall next. For years, the existence of Iran's secretive mountain base remained shrouded in rumor and only partially glimpsed through the grainy lens of satellite overflights and rare regional leaks. Jane's and BBC investigations traced the strategic logic. Tucked deep within arid highlands and shielded by natural ridgelines, the site was designed to evade the reach of conventional airstrikes while providing Tehran with a resilient command post and missile hub. Constructed with tunnels bored into solid rock, camouflaged hangars, and earth-covered storage depots, the base was nearly invisible from the air and all but immune to quick decapitation raids. Al-Monitor's regional sources suggested its layered defenses included anti-aircraft batteries disguised as civilian outbuildings and an extensive network of underground corridors connecting barracks, ammo bunkers, and a central operations cell. Western analysts long suspected this outpost to be a linchpin in Iran's asymmetric strategy, a refuge from which IRGC planners could launch drones, coordinate proxy operations, or ride out the opening salvos of a larger war. Until now, its existence was debated a ghost in OSINT forums, a shadow on blurred imagery. But with the aftermath of this U.S. strike, the world saw the base's true scale, its hardened launching pads ruptured, and its underground maze suddenly exposed to scrutiny. For viewers seeking the inside picture, this is a rare chance to glimpse Iran's secret architecture of power, now irrevocably altered. The decision to launch such a forceful retaliation was not made in a vacuum. For weeks, U.S. and allied intelligence agencies had tracked a surge in Iranian activity that rang alarm bells across multiple capitals. According to CSIS analysis and confirmed by open-source trackers on Live UMAP, a cluster of Iranian ballistic missile units was abruptly repositioned near the Gulf, accompanied by cryptic increases in radio chatter and fuel shipments to hidden depots. RAND Corporation experts flagged a pattern of pre-hostility moves, rapid expansion of drone launch pads, the arrival of specialized IRGC communications vehicles at remote sites, and a sudden drop in commercial maritime traffic along typical Iranian routes, hinting at a possible operation in the works. CNN International's reporting chronicled the flashpoint, a bold IRGC strike on a Western military asset in the region, details classified but described as far exceeding the sporadic incidents of the past. Credible leaks cited intercepted orders authorizing what American defense officials called disproportionate risk, pushing past previous limits set by back-channel communication and diplomatic warnings. In the aftermath, the Pentagon determined that deterrence, carefully calibrated over years, had eroded past the point of sustainability. What set this retaliation apart, as highlighted in contemporaneous BBC and Defense News coverage, was the sense that Tehran was not simply probing, but actively testing whether the U.S. had the will and readiness to defend its stated red lines. The resulting American response was both a message and a gamble, a demonstration that escalation would not be met with patience, but with resolve and overwhelming force, calculated not just to neutralize the immediate threat, but to restore a sense of consequence, missing from the conflict's most recent phase. Beneath the headlines, the operation was a masterclass in modern joint force planning, fusing stealth, speed, and technological dominance. In the days prior, intelligence gathered by geo-confirmed and defense news, supported by snippets of intercepted communications, painted a revealing picture. Drone flyovers captured thermal anomalies at the base's core, while anomaly detectors picked up on electromagnetic changes suggesting command centers coming online. Air and naval assets began shifting discreetly. Satellites tracked a subtle but telling ballet as U.S. bombers vanished from Western radars, only to reappear over the Arabian Sea, refueling at high altitude well beyond visible range. Timeline reconstructions show the operations room-style choreography. First, cyber teams mapped the hostile base's digital footprint, disrupting secondary sensors by flooding radio nets with decoy chatter. Simultaneously, U.S. submarine, destroyer, and stealth drone forces closed in, some transmitting false signatures to confuse Iran's air defenses. Just before the strike window, an invisible hand swept the sky clean. EA-18G Growlers jammed Iranian radar, and a satellite briefly blinked offline, concealing incoming cruise missiles from their last line of warning. At 0 hour, precision-guided missiles arced in, some above the surface, others using nap-of-the-earth profiles to evade detection, echoing tactics detailed in Caspian Report's recent deep dives. As the first impacts rattled the base, stealth bombers released heavier payloads against hardened targets, their flight paths carefully deconflicted, with drones providing last-second damage assessment. On the periphery, special operations units inserted under the radar days before relayed live confirmation that critical bunkers were collapsing, transmitting encrypted footage back to Central Command for instant verification. What stands out, as Defense News later noted, was the seamless integration across military domains, from high orbit to underwater, electronic to kinetic. Each move reduced Iranian options, creating a storm of confusion that prevented an organized response. It was the coordination and the absolute clarity of intent that made this not just a strike, but a strategic reset. The operation began as a series of blips on radar, then escalated into a full-spectrum assault that would reverberate across the region by morning. Once the go signal was given, U.S. bombers, invisible to most sensors, swept in low across the horizon, their silhouettes barely discernible against the night sky. Live UA map updates pinged one after another as the strikes initiated, quickly mirrored by amateur videos from within Iran, showing the sudden brilliance of airbursts and incoming projectiles arcing over the mountains. In coordinated waves, drones streaked in ahead of the crewed aircraft, beaming back high-definition footage that confirmed defensive guns spun to life far too late. BBC and Defense Update sources tracked the sequence. The first precision munitions hit anti-air emplacements and radar towers, each target mapped meticulously to clear a safe corridor for the main bombardment. Next came heavier ordnance, synchronized in microseconds and falling on entry tunnels, fuel bunkers, and the hardened command center carved deep into the hillside. Witnesses near the blast zone reported thunderous roars and shaking earth, the kind of bombardment that left even seasoned IRGC officers in shock. Infrared imagery and OSINT feeds captured the aftermath in chilling detail, engulfing fires, secondary explosions from detonating munition stockpiles, and plumes of black smoke visible for miles. Defense Update's analysts noted how rapid drone passes circled to update strike maps in real time, ensuring nothing critical was left unscathed. Even as Iranian anti-aircraft crews scrambled to retaliate, decoy drones and electronic countermeasures kept their barrages misdirected. The result was unmistakable. The untouchable base was overrun, its defensive bubble shattered, and underlying infrastructure in ruins. In the hours that followed, social media feeds filled with footage of burning bunkers and frantic emergency crews, while official Iranian channels maintained a tense silence. By morning, what was once an emblem of hidden power had become a symbol of vulnerability, its annihilation sending an unmissable warning to every military planner in the region. The immediate aftermath of the strike sent waves of shock and confusion through Iran's political, military, and civilian circles. Within minutes, official state media, led by Tasnim News, released terse bulletins claiming all enemy attacks were foiled, insisting that defensive systems had operated as planned and minimizing any real damage. These statements, echoed in early Monitor coverage, strove to project business-as-usual images of calm city streets, routine IRGC patrols, and confident anchors assuring the public that nothing vital had been lost. Yet as darkness lingered, cracks in the official story quickly spread. Regional sources and local journalists posted videos showing armored convoys racing through Iran's southern highway networks, checkpoints multiplied around military districts, and field hospitals near coastal cities began operating under blackout conditions. Amateur footage, often grainy, sometimes quickly deleted, surfaced on social media, revealing flaming bunkers, shuddering glass in town centers, and crowds of anxious civilians whispering rumors as phones lit up with messages to distant relatives. Within key IRGC command facilities, nervous urgency replaced official composure. Privately, officials called for reinforcements to suspected secondary targets, while internal communications networks buzzed with conflicting orders and situational briefings. Electricity outages in affected provinces were explained away as grid maintenance, but the jittery behavior of local authorities told a different story. Al-Monitor's Tehran contacts hinted at a political scramble to maintain an image of resilience, even as senior clerics convened in emergency session alongside the Revolutionary Guard's leadership. For millions of ordinary Iranians, the information vacuum was filled by speculation. Was this just the first blow, or the prelude to something even larger? As the world waited for clarity, Iran's image of control seemed more fragile than at any point in years, each rumor feeding a growing sense that the rules of conflict had just changed. Initial assessments from Janes and CSIS made clear that the obliterated base represented far more than just another mark on Iran's sprawling military map. This installation had long served as a critical node in the IRGC's command and control architecture, housing secure communications hubs, encrypted relay stations, and stockpiles of advanced munitions, including medium-range ballistic missiles and drone swarms designed for rapid deployment across the Gulf. Analysts pointed out that this facility supported not only direct IRGC operations, but was also a linchpin for Tehran's regional proxy network, facilitating logistical transfers to allied groups and providing safe haven for leadership in times of crisis. Satellite evidence and post-strike imagery revealed that key launching pads and hardened bunkers had been gutted, with command tunnels collapsed and ammunition depots set off in secondary detonations that burned for hours. Communication satellites monitoring open channels reported a sudden blackout in encrypted traffic, suggesting a full loss of secure connectivity for multiple Iranian field commands. Striking at this location was a calculated decision. By targeting a base so deeply integrated into Iran's warfighting infrastructure, the U.S. not only neutralized immediate threats, but also sent a powerful strategic message: no element of Iran's defense depth was out of reach. The fallout rippled across every echelon of the IRGC's regional influence. With this attack, a key link in Tehran's chain of escalation was decisively severed, imposing real costs on both operational flexibility and psychological deterrence. The message resonated. Resilience built in secret could no longer guarantee protection. As official statements clashed and rumors surged, the real scope of the operation was pieced together not just by government briefings, but by a global network of open-source intelligence enthusiasts and digital sleuths. On LiveUA Map and GeoConfirm's Twitter feeds, fresh satellite images captured in the hours after the strike went viral, showing unmistakable patterns of flattened bunkers, scorched earth, and blast craters aligned with the presumed locations of Iran's secret base. Publicly available tools enabled experts and amateurs alike to sift through gigabytes of before and after imagery, measuring debris fields, comparing shadows, and identifying destroyed radar installations that official sources either downplayed or ignored. Social media became a live newsroom. OSINT analysts annotated photos of rare vehicle types in the blast zone, matched geolocation data to known IRGC facilities, and even detected scorch marks where camouflaged launchers once sat. This decentralized information surge was amplified by veteran contributors on platforms like Reddit and military YouTube channels, who cross-referenced news reports with technical breakdowns and on-the-ground visuals. The result? A more nuanced and credible reconstruction of the attack's true effects, exposing the diplomatic and military realities that governments were slow to admit. In this new era, crowdsourced evidence became both a check on official propaganda and a spotlight, revealing just how much can be learned without ever setting foot on the battlefield. Within hours, the shockwaves of the U.S. strike cascaded across world capitals and stock exchanges alike. Israel's security cabinet publicly praised the operation as a bold response to Iranian adventurism, with senior officials telling AP News their air force remains on a heightened alert, bracing for possible retaliatory missile barrages or proxy attacks. In sharp contrast, Russia condemned the strike in the strongest terms, state-backed commentators on RT channeling the Kremlin's concern about U.S. unilateral escalation and warning of new instability across the region. China's foreign ministry issued a carefully worded statement urging restraint and dialogue, even as state media questioned Washington's long-term strategic intentions. The EU, echoing analysis in CSIS briefings, called for emergency consultations, with leading European diplomats privately expressing anxiety over the potential for accidental escalation into a region-wide crisis, especially near critical maritime choke points. Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states responded more quietly, ramping up internal security around their own energy infrastructure, reviewing maritime protocols, and discreetly seeking U.S. and British reassurances of rapid support should hostilities spread. Global commodities markets registered the risk instantly. Oil futures soared, shipping companies hiked rates, and international insurers issued fresh travel warnings for Gulf transit zones. As analysts on Al Jazeera observed, it was clear the impact of one destroyed base was not confined to the battleground. It reverberated through alliances, energy corridors, and the daily calculations of every player with skin in the region's high-stakes game. The aftermath of the strike sets the stage for a new and uncertain chapter, as military strategists from RAND and analysts at Defense News warned that the destruction of Iran's hidden base could become either a catalyst for spiraling conflict or a line in the sand that recalibrates the rules. On the one hand, voices on broadcasts like Kings and Generals forecast an immediate risk of asymmetric retaliation, missile attacks against U.S. facilities, cyber strikes on Western infrastructure, or a campaign of harassment targeting shipping lanes and regional allies via Iran's proxy network. Yet others argue that the scale and precision of the strike may force Tehran to pause and reassess its options. Having seen a supposedly untouchable stronghold obliterated with apparent ease, IRGC commanders must weigh carefully whether the costs of direct escalation now outweigh the uncertain rewards. There is also an emerging diplomatic window. Regional mediators and European states, alarmed by the speed of events, are already pressing back channels for negotiations in hopes of preventing further triggers. RAND's reporting highlights a historic truth. When deterrence is shattered, new boundaries are quickly drawn, sometimes by design, sometimes by accident. With domestic pressures rising in both capitals and misinformation clouding intent, the risk of miscalculation is as acute as ever. As new military assets flow into the Gulf and political voices alternate between warning and negotiation, every move from both sides will signal whether the night's violence leads to a wider war or a grudging recalibration, and whether this strike sets a precedent or draws a desperately needed red line for all. Across southern Iran, the thunder of explosions shattered sleep and sent families scrambling for cover. Mothers clutching children, elders whispering prayers, teenagers texting friends for news. In seaside towns, shopkeepers waited anxiously for word of relatives in the service, while bus drivers and fishermen swapped grim rumors at sunrise. Phone lines buzzed with comforting messages and anxious questions. Are you safe? What happens next? In the United States, soldiers who flew the mission described a mix of pride and apprehension, aware that their actions meant as much for distant civilians as for shifting strategies. On Tehran's boulevards, some city dwellers bristled with defiant words about resistance and national sovereignty, their voices echoing across BBC and Al Jazeera reports. Others confessed uncertainty, fearful that tonight's destruction might be only a prelude to something worse. And yet, in the small moments, sharing tea with neighbors, sending hopeful texts, tending wounds, there were reminders that ordinary people, not headlines or statements, bear the true cost of escalation. For every leader's threat or analyst's prediction, thousands hold their breath for morning, hoping for news no more dire than what they endured this night. As the world raced to interpret the scale of the strike, the battle for truth became almost as fierce as the events on the ground. Viral clips swept across Telegram and Twitter, many purporting to show live destruction or intercepted footage, yet BBC Reality Check and Al Jazeera Fact Check teams quickly flagged that a significant portion were outdated, re-edited, or geolocated from entirely different regions. Some images, traced by OSINT communities, proved to be years old, while others blended authentic scenes with false context or exaggerated captions. Official channels in Washington and Tehran vied for narrative control, releasing their own clips and statements carefully crafted to frame the operation as either restraint or outrage. For viewers, the noise could prove overwhelming. Media analysts stressed, check sources, seek cross-verification, and rely on reputable agencies or geolocated visuals, not rumor-driven posts or anonymous accounts. In this climate, the best defense against spin is vigilance, double-check before sharing, seek multiple viewpoints, and recognize that in the digital fog of modern warfare, facts remain more valuable and harder won than ever before. With the dust still settling, the true consequences of this operation are only beginning to take shape, and your perspective matters. Do you believe the US response was justified, or did it raise the risks of a wider conflict? What do you see as the greatest danger now? Escalation, misinformation, or the erosion of trust between nations? Share your take in the comments below, debate with fellow viewers, and challenge assumptions this channel thrives on informed debate and diverse voices. Your analysis could be what others need to see the bigger picture. Don't miss the chance to help shape the global conversation as the world waits to see what happens next. The next 48 hours will be critical as world leaders weigh their next moves, militaries adjust their posture, and new intelligence emerges at a rapid pace. Will we see calls for a ceasefire, further reprisals, or an unexpected diplomatic opening? Our team will be watching every statement, satellite update, and market shift, bringing you truth as it develops, not days after the fact. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay ahead of the headlines and get the context you won't find anywhere else. In a crisis this volatile, each update could redefine what comes next. Don't miss a moment as the world watches, waits, and responds.